Gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce Kevin Edmunds, uh, and also for us to just talk about Haiti. Haiti is a particularly interesting. We focus on Haiti as a disaster case, but Haiti, as Kevin pointed out to me in one of our exchanges, has been free of some kind of foreign intervention for only 6 years and 18 months of its 2-century existence. And Kevin will be explaining some of the consequences of this. Kevin is an assistant professor at the Center for Caribbean Studies at New College, right across the street. He has a PhD in political science from the University of Toronto. He did a thesis on guns, gangs, and garrison communities in the politics of Jamaica at the turn of the century. His interests are wide but regional. Caribbean political economy, foreign intervention, histories of development, the region's radical tradition. He's had numerous grants and a number of projects. He's working on a book on the political economy of the Caribbean cannabis trade, and he's written articles on the developmental limitations of inclusive tourism. And he's also written, and I assume will be writing, about the history of foreign intervention. His talk today will be on gangs and the ongoing counter-revolution in Haiti. Evan, it's all yours.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I believe the first time I spoke in front of 3 professors and was incredibly intimidated was at a job talk. So this is exponentially more stressful. So if I seem to lose my spot, understand, please, that's why it's there. So I just wanted to thank, of course, to Martin, Linda, and Michael for the assistance in helping me arrive here today with the technical assistance. And I just wanted to give another apology, not because I feel that we won't have a discussion or necessarily be able to learn a little bit about Haiti and likewise learn about some of the questions that you have, but there's far too much to discuss and unpack in 45 minutes. When it comes to learning about Haiti. So things will be missed. Large historical junctures will be kind of glossed over. But please, I hope that we can come back to them during the questions. So I'm going to cover a lot of ground. This is more of an attempt to provide breadth necessarily than just depth. I realize that that's something I would get in trouble for in other places, but I feel that the context is really important for us to understand. So the way that I plan my discussion today is to start with the contemporary moment, which I think most of us have seen on the news in regards to the gangs and their level of control in the country. And I think correspondingly, we would ask, how did this happen? What went wrong? And how did we arrive at this point? Where is the state? Where is the Haitian government? Where has the international community been for us to see these images on the news, right? These 30-second or a minute and a half kind of news clips where we just see absolute chaos and terror. So that's where I'm starting from, because I think we're familiar with that. And then I'm going to work backwards and go over about 220 years. So I have a graph. It explains things a lot faster. But so that's the setup. So please, anything that you feel that I was not clear on, I will not take offense to it. I'm aware that that's the way that it's going to be set up today. So just wanted to move forward. So I don't know how well this comes across, but I just wanted to put up this quote here by James Baldwin. Some people might be familiar with him, the African-American political critic, writer, artist, kind of a Renaissance person. But I wanted to keep this quote in our minds as I go through the discussion today because a lot of the ways that we talk about Haiti, not necessarily just on campus, but in the media through popular conversations and narratives, is that it's simply a basket case and it's almost a prototypical case. And I learned this in political science. We used it as kind of a natural experiment as to what goes wrong when people of African descent are left on their own devices. So I was kind of taken aback by that because the way that it was framed seemed a bit unfair and ahistorical. But it's guided a lot of my research into Haiti since. So I wanted to keep that quote in mind because our discussions around Haiti tend to be focused on helping and humanitarianism and providing guidance or some kind of paternalistic influence over the country, where the actual story is quite different. It's much more troubling and negative. So there's a lot of these historical double standards that I'm going to try to address quickly, which have been devastating for the Haitian people and correspondingly for the Haitian state. So I feel there's going to be quite a bit of questions, and I just wanted to jump into some of the ways that Haiti is portrayed to us. So the text is quite small, but the collage that's behind me is actually just a sampling of news clippings I put together in maybe 5 minutes about how we talk about Haiti. So it talks about Haiti as a failed state, an economic basket case. We all know about Trump and his comments a few years ago about Haiti in particular, but also African nations as shithole countries. And he doesn't want them to come to the United States. Talking about Haiti as a cursed place, several of them has to do with voodoo, or that they angered God by fighting for their freedom. So there's this supernatural curse that's been placed on them, whether that's the earthquakes or poverty or food insecurity or hurricanes, political instability, you name it. My family's from St. Lucia, and this is something that within the Caribbean, there's some popular narrative that Haiti is what happens when you don't listen, right? That this is the outcome. So politically, we're doing better off because we've kind of followed the rules, where Haiti is kind of this this case where everything has gone wrong because they fought back. That's where the analysis ends. It doesn't carry on to tell us the consequences of fighting back, which I think are equally important for us to learn and talk about. So other images like this tend to dominate our discussion and analysis of Haiti. So armed gangs, criminality, social and political breakdown, economic desperation, all of these things are true. And it's really difficult to get into analysis. As we know, when you watch the news or read a newspaper article, there's only so much. They're bounded by space and time. They can't provide all of this. But a moment that we're currently in is one in which Canada, the United States, the European Union, and the Organization of American States have helped to cobble together a new multinational intervention into Haiti to try and fight the gangs and bring forward some political stability. So I think at the surface, this is really important. It's necessary to bring about stability in Haiti. It's the means by which this is happening and the lessons that we failed to learn from history that I wanted to speak to. So part of this is actually that this won't be the first time that there's going to be an armed multinational intervention into Haiti to fight gangs. The first one actually happened in 2004 after Canada, the United States, and France in particular helped to overthrow a democratically elected government in Haiti. It was only the second one in their history. The consequences of that continue to ripple throughout the country. So we're kind of hopefully seeing the tail end of this with complete state breakdown and chaos. But Canada in particular has had a heavy hand in Haiti, and we've kind of been let off the hook for our harmful interventions in Haiti, right? And the consequences of that. So this group that we kind of don't really talk about when we discuss Haiti. We'll talk about the Haitian government and their failures and their definite accountability for what's going on, because I'm not letting them off with that. But we actually have something called the core group, which is the governments of Canada, Brazil, France, Germany, the European Union, and Spain has a special representative on there in addition to the EU representative, as well as special representatives from the Organization of American States and the United Nations. They regularly meet to discuss and plan a path forward for Haiti. So oftentimes when I mention this, people will say, well, it's this shadowy group that, it's kind of a conspiracy theory that you're talking about, that they can have this influence. But as my slide shows, the current president of Haiti, as if we can call him that, was actually appointed via text message from the leader of the core group, because there was a political disagreement about succession in Haiti, because you might remember the former president Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in 2021. And because of the fact that Haiti's political institutions had been allowed to erode and degrade and kind of just been left alone, where there was no elections to fill up positions, there was no clear line of succession to who the president would be. So according to the Haitian constitution, it was one person, but the core group intervened on the same day and said, no, we are just nominating our chosen candidate to become president, right? So this intervention is one of many that has led to further instability in the country, because it's led to a kind of deepening political chaos where we are now in a point where we don't know how to get out of it. Intervention is looked at as a promising way to do that you could somehow bring about peace and stability. But then the flip side of that is that you don't have the institutions and necessarily the capacity, because so many people have left the country, understandably, to run those institutions. And then you have the issues of debt, climate vulnerability. It's a really tall task to ask for anyone to be able to do that. So the issue with this group, the core group that has direct power over Haiti's political and economic orientation and the direction that they're going to take, is not something that is new. This power, foreign power, determining the path that Haiti can go down is not something that started in 2004. It's something that goes back right to the birth of the Haitian state in 1804. Even obviously we can understand prior to the Haitian Revolution, Haiti was a colony of France. It was one of the wealthiest colonies in the world at the time. Haiti itself produced more wealth for France than the 13 colonies that would become the United States of America. So it provided an immense amount of wealth, and it was a central place in terms of global politics at the time, that if Haiti fell to the people who had been enslaved, much of the Atlantic system was at risk for a similar collapse, right? So there was a need to try and contain the revolution from spreading, understandably, to other islands, to the southern United States, and throughout the rest of the Caribbean. So we, in Caribbean studies, we tend to look at Haiti as the first country of the third world, in the sense that it was economically isolated, it was politically blockaded, and then it became immediately indebted to its former colonizers. So I don't know how familiar people are with this, but when Haiti fought for their revolution, fighting against Napoleon's army, and the Spanish and the French militaries, it's a rare moment of coordination between these imperial rivals, that they decided that they were going to intervene on Haiti and just make sure that it didn't spread. That the enslaved people won. It was a long battle, started in 1791 and it ended in 1804. So this year's 220 years of Haitian so-called independence. And from the moment Haiti was free, political recognition was withheld. It was kind of to pretend Haiti didn't exist, the revolution did not happen, just ignore it, kind of write it out of history. But that's not the way things work. So Haiti wanted to join the international community, as any country coming out of war would, where a third of the population was killed in the revolution, plantations were burnt, all of the infrastructure was destroyed. They need to find a way to move forward. So they wanted to have relations with the United States, with England, with France, with Britain, but they were denied that. And one of the reasons was that France insisted that Haiti pay back reparations for the enslaved people that were kidnapped from Africa, as well as the stolen land from the indigenous people. So they said that we won't give you political recognition until we are made whole for what happened here, right? So Haiti wavered on this back and forth. It took 21 years for them to actually make the decision, because the economic deterioration of the country due to a lack of trade forced their hand. So in 1825, they signed an agreement with France to pay back 150 francs. So fast forwarding to what that would look like today, the last study that I saw that measured it out, according for inflation and current monetary value, was around $21 billion. Okay. Haiti paid that back from 1825 and paid the last cent on that debt in 1947. Okay, so it was 120 years where 80% of their gross domestic product went to paying that debt. So that left 20%. I'm not naive in saying, oh, that 20% would have just gone to schools and things like that. That was for the different revolving wheel of Haitian dictators and presidents to take from and to use for their own palaces and extravagant living. But that left nothing for the state. And that was a really big problem, because there's moments in Haiti where we do see that there's some moments, progressive moments, where the political scene opens and you do have figures that step in with these really inspiring, big transformative plans. Debt obviously has cut a lot of those plans short. Political interference has cut a lot of those plans short. So Haiti, the debt is something that is really important for us to think about. The second thing is this near constant intervention. So the reason why Haiti also signed this agreement to pay back the loan is that France was threatening to reinstitute slavery in Haiti. And they sent gunships to the harbor in Port-au-Prince to say, we'll help you make the decision. Several times they did this, right? So it was pretty much an existential threat to them. And they felt that aside from fighting another war and perhaps losing, it was quite terrifying to think of. So Haiti doesn't get political recognition from France until 1825. The United States doesn't recognize it until 1872. For fear that this revolution will spread and word about it would spread to places, as you could imagine, in Louisiana, where a lot of slave owners had brought their slaves from Haiti. And there's some fascinating work that just came out about how news traveled through these circuits of people from the Caribbean being moved around the southern United States, and that you would see what were traditionally or previously thought as spontaneous uprisings were actually coordinated to this idea that people were so inspired by what happened in Haiti and the stories that were being told that they tried to replicate that. And obviously they were not successful, because there was no similar revolution in the United States. But this is something that's really important when we take this into account. So I'm just going to jump forward a little bit here. So I've kind of spoken to this as to how we've got to the point where the gangs have emerged as the most powerful groups in society. So multiple. There's not one. There's many gangs. A lot of them are obviously concentrated in the capital. That's the economic hub of the country, if we can say that, but where manufacturing and imports come into, where they can be pillaged or withheld. So we might be familiar with what had been happening in the country the last few years, where one of the largest gangs in the country actually blockaded the fuel terminal and basically extorted hospitals, gas stations, and because the hospitals needed it to run their generators, to say that you need to pay us to let the trucks go or else we will just keep it and people will die. It's just complete, you know, terror being sown there by these gangs. And a lot of the questions are like, where's the police? The police are not there. The Haitian government is not there. In a lot of sad ways, I think I'll just move back one slide. This person, some of you might have seen him in the reports. He's probably one of the most famous gang leaders in Haiti right now, Jimmy Cherize. His alias is Barbecue. He's a former police officer. He left the police force to go to earn more money because the Haitian state couldn't pay his salary. He brought a lot of police officers with him, so they have this tactical knowledge. They have knowledge of the terrain. They have their own networks. I'm not saying that they're all upstanding citizens. A lot of, you know, one of the reasons why we try to justify high police salaries, even in Toronto, is that it discourages corruption because they're able to meet their needs, that they don't need to do this on top. Of course, we know that doesn't work for everyone, but that's one of the arguments. So you could imagine in a context where the exact opposite is happening, it's ripe for corruption to take place. So how did the state end up in this place where it's absent? And it's a long story, but I'm gonna do my best. I've already started there. In terms of letting you know about the debt and the interventions that initially happened to limit Haiti's success as a modern state. There's a bit of a backstory to what I would say right now with the gang crisis is that the last two administrations in Haiti actually were not elected by anything close to even 0.25% of the Haitian people. They were kind of sham elections that were set up as kind of rubber stamp governments to oversee initially the earthquake reconstruction, and then there was a succession that was planned in 2017. In 2019, there was widespread protests across the country. The Haitian people understandably realized that the corruption had reached a point where they're not surviving. That's what led to a hemispheric crisis. The Haitians ending up we saw the Mexico-Texas border, where there were tens of thousands of Haitian people trying to cross, for example, and they were immediately deported back to Haiti. And people were wondering, how could this happen? And some of the people that they talked to that had made that journey, they had walked, and I mean, you can pull out your smartphone and check this out. I'm not lying. They have walked from Chile up until the US-Mexico border because they were trying to flee. There's different reasons why people have left, but Latin America was a receiving country for many Haitian refugees after 2004 and after 2010. Brazil took in a lot to help build infrastructure for the Olympics and the World Cup, and then they were no longer needed, so they kind of scattered around the South American continent. But there was a lot of corruption that Haitians were fighting about, and one of the flashpoints for this was that the prices of oil lost their traditional subsidies that the Haitian state had been providing. The reason why they had this subsidy was because of the Venezuelan government. That there was a program that was put in place called Petro Caribe, where when the Venezuelan government in better times financially, they were able to provide this support to the Caribbean, Haiti included, irrespective of whether they liked your government or not. But the deal was that they will give you oil at concessionary rates. You pay a lower rate of interest, and with the money that you'd save, you put it into a savings account for social programs, right? To help with infrastructure, education, healthcare. In this case, probably people were smiling. That's naive, right? And in the case of Haiti, it was definitely naive because you had a kleptocratic group in power. They stole when I say they, the former president, Michel Martelly, who was also appointed in 2010 by the United States, Canada, France, and this core group, stole $2 billion from the Haitian treasury. He's living in Miami quite well. He's been named in a number of corruption suits since he's left the country. Um, but this is something that really set off the people, one, just because of the corruption and just the size of it, but also the impact that it directly had on people's livelihoods, that they couldn't afford to fill up their taxi to take people to work and things like that. So there was massive protests starting in 2018, 2019. And this is where we see the gangs really start to become powerful forces in Haiti, even more so than they've traditionally been. But just to give some examples, so 2018, multiple protests. I'll go through it quickly. You'll get the idea quite quickly. That Haiti was on the brink of what a lot of people thought was going to be not a revolution, but a political sea change, in the sense that there would no longer be any legitimacy of the current administration to try and govern. So a lot of these protests, and this is one of a general strike where no one is on the street, that people were thinking, wow, this is, something to see, that, there's gangs that are out there that are attacking people, but people are stepping out into the streets, they're building organizations, they're trying to take back power to try and turn around the country. The terrible thing here is that this is when the Haitian politicians unleash the gangs on these community organizations and political organizations and protesters. There were a number of massacres where, when I'm talking about this, about hundreds of people being massacred. One of the slides that was there, if anyone's interested to ask about sources or further material, I'd be happy to provide it, where it was politically targeted assassinations and massacres of communities that have traditionally been bases for the political opposition against what I would say the Haitian right-wing political forces. So some of you might have heard of the Duvalier dictatorship in Haiti. So the government that is currently still in power, there's a lineage between them. There's supporters, admirers of Duvalier who are in power. This is stuff that has been known for a long time, but they were looked at as the appropriate rulers to be put in place in order to tamp down on a popular uprising in Haiti. So it's very messy. It's very sad to see that this is the case. But one thing that we also do see in the media is when we talk about the Haitian gangs and sort of the crisis and violences there, is the kidnappings that happened, right? There were the American missionaries that were kidnapped. There was a number of other people from the United States, the people from the Haitian diaspora returning back, and there were kidnappings. Something we don't tend to see, when you would think, and this is something we can look further into, is that the Haitian elite, it's very small. It's about 12 families that control almost 70% of Haiti's wealth, right? That most of them are non-native to Haiti. A lot of them, they moved from Syria and the Middle East in the 1930s and ended up starting merchant businesses in Haiti and built themselves up into kind of a commercial and merchant class there, right? Which is common across the Caribbean. It's not something that's unique to Haiti. But we have never seen them actually come under attack or threat by these gangs. So a lot of people are wondering why this would be the case, that you would prey on people who make less than $1 a day, right? 80% of the country makes less than $2 a day. It's not ripe for mass profits if you are going to extort incredibly poor people. The returns on that are just not good. But it doesn't make sense why they're not looking to the other spectrum of Haitian society to say that this is where the money and the power is, right? So the reason why that is because the Haitian elite are also with the politicians in funding the gangs, okay? Some of the weapons that you see up on here, if you were to get them at market price, they're machine guns that are used by the US military, for example. They make it into Haiti from ports, right? They get brought in. Of course, there's illegal airstrips throughout the country, but the ports in Haiti are privately owned. So there's no state oversight. Not that the state right now would do anything, but from 1995 onward, the ports in Haiti were privatized. So it gave no oversight, and it was just based off of trust that some of the wealthiest people in Haiti and the most powerful people would actually use some kind of standard for operating these ports. The reality is that they became massive centers for drug trafficking and arms trafficking and all other kinds of smuggling, right? So these drug gangs in Haiti and the street gangs, they're symbiotic, they work together, but it's permeated kind of all of the upper echelon of Haitian political and economic um, society, right? Which makes it very difficult to address. Sorry, this the slide's not coming up. Okay, there. So this is just what I had mentioned about the ports and the gangs, and the former president of Haiti, who Canada again gave its full backing to. He was elected. I should do this. Elected in 2010 during an election that Canada and the United States fully financed. The Haitian people didn't want it to happen. The earthquake had just happened, but they understood the need for some kind of accountability, right? To be able to have someone manage and sign off on the reconstruction efforts and provide some kind of roadmap forward. This was really rushed, but because the almost $11 billion that was promised by the international community needed to start flowing, the elections were rushed and there was a lot of political interference. So 14 political parties were banned during this election, including the largest one. So this is not, again, accidental. It's because the largest party in Haiti, if you are going to have a democracy, it was, people have criticized it as being a populist party. Sure, we can give it that name. But it was really the slogan that this party and their former leaders had put forward on the table to inspire people, if you could call it that, is that I will move you from absolute misery to dignified poverty. So it wasn't like this Fidel Castro kind of revolution where we're going to seize land and do this. Very, very modest reforms, things like taxing the Haitian elite for the first time in history. These are very unpopular ideas. If these Haitian politicians were in Canada, they wouldn't qualify to be in the NDP. And that's saying something in a number of ways. But I'm just saying that their program wouldn't be considered left-wing at all. Very, very moderate policies. But our chosen candidate, who is a former singer, a political outsider, now this has become obviously a big, big thing, is an admitted former gang leader. He admitted, so what's here, it says Martelly, so there's Michel Martelly in the bottom corner, not only financed several gangs and provided them with weapons during his tenure, but he created one in particular. He was in a Tonton Macoute, which was Duvalier's gang in main paramilitary organization during the dictatorship. He admitted that he was part of an organization or a splinter group that would go out and terrorize opponents of the dictatorship. And he was quite proud of it. And he has songs about it. So this is someone with a very checkered past that was chosen to lead the country at a very vulnerable moment. And things went wrong. Who could have thought, right? Putting an admitted gangster and drug dealer into power when there is $11 billion of earthquake aid flowing in, a lack of domestic accountability, because as we saw in 2010, most of the government buildings collapsed, right? So a lot of the Haitian civil service literally was no longer around because they were buried in the rubble and passed away. This got forced onto the Haitian people, and I think the consequences are kind of speaking for themselves. And that's even putting it very mildly. It's really, really upsetting to look into this. But the reason why there has been this consistent push against the Haitian people from having any kind of leverage or political power in the country is because it is at odds with this small Haitian elite and also just wider geopolitical interests in the region. So yes, slavery is not a thing in 2023 for the most part. I'm not saying there's not isolated incidents where there's child slavery or sex trafficking and stuff like that. It exists, but I'm talking about like fully fledged institutions like we saw during colonization, and which stopped in the 1800s, right? That fear kind of never went away, though, because it was a fear about self-determination and the possibility that if people have sovereignty, their idea of what self-determination looks like might be diametrically opposed to the former colonizers. Hence why Haiti had to be isolated. The Haitian people, when you talk about them in a mass, of course, it's a diverse group of people. But when we talk about the Haitian peasantry, which is the bulk of the population, their political culture, the way they engage with each other is very communal in the sense that it's a natural fit that they would vote for social policies which talk about redistribution, right? Of course, yes, you're also poor. You don't have running water. There's no garbage collection. You have a leaky roof. You're going to say, yes, you know, all of the people that have $2 a day, there's not much to redistribute. We need to look to the elites in the country. But they also have radically democratic principles. And when they've been put into place, and I'm not just talking about in 1990, but from the early days of the revolution being successful, is that mutual aid was something that has been ingrained in Haitian society. It's called Kombi, which might be traced back to West African political and economic practices. But on its own, it acted as a counter mechanism to this kind of more predatory or extractive ways that the Haitian state post-independence tried to take money from the people, right, by taking their crops and taxing them rather than trying to build up the state. So a lot of people within these Kombi communities, so a lot of them actually withdrew from the state. They went into the countryside where they could determine their own kind of future. They've always been at odds. So Haiti's been characterized as being a state that is against the nation, right? That the Haitian government doesn't represent the people in any real way and hasn't for the most part of its history, because it's been very kleptocratic, very authoritarian, very violent, and most people in the country want nothing to do with it. So you have this competing tension that's there. But there's these small moments in time where you do have these windows of opportunity of the Haitian people getting into power. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay, no problem. We can adjust. But I did have I'll see if it can open up again. Just because that one slide that I mentioned to you will be there. I don't know if Michael's still here. Just to see where it is. I'm not sure. But while we try to get that fixed, looking at the further interventions leading up to the present day. So I mentioned the debt. After the debt, or while the debt was being repaid, there was an occupation of Haiti because the US in particular was worried that Haiti was becoming too tied to Europe. We know about maybe the Monroe Doctrine that the US had put in place that tried to, on paper, argue that we want to keep out European colonial powers from the Americas. It's going to be our job as, you know, a rightful anti-imperialist power, right, that fought the British to stop the French, the British, and the Spanish from coming back in and doing terrible things. So they use that context because Haiti had traditionally been banned from trading with a lot of their neighbors. They developed commercial ties with Germany, of all places, right? And also with France, because there's that connection. And in 1919, the United States was worried, right? We're talking about World War I just, you know, taking place. They said, we don't want German influence so close to American shores. So there was a justification put forward to invade Haiti and get rid of the government and put in a more, what would we call it? Acceptable, friendly government that was pro-US. So this occupation started in 1919 and lasted until 1934. But what the occupation did, aside from setting up the Haitian military that would massacre many, many people from 1919 until 1994, it also put in place and opened a really important chapter into Haiti's history, where something that the revolution did in 1804 was that it said that, you know, now that Haiti is free, Haiti will not allow foreigners to own land in the country because they saw that as a window to recolonization. Amazing. Thank you, Michael. So, as you could expect in 1919, the United States comes in and rips up the Haitian Constitution and makes a new one, where they say that kind of limitation is no longer in place, that it's a free reign. So this is where you see United Fruit and large sugar companies from the United States coming. I think
just choose your slide.
yeah, no problem. I just think. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much, Michael. So I've talked through a few of these. I'm not going to go through all of them because I realize the time, and I'm just going to double check. Yeah, I'm pretty much there right now. But just to list what's happening, I'm going to do a very bird's eye overview of this. Is to let you know that things did not stop when the US occupation ended in 1934. There was a series of military dictatorships that were in place. There was varying competing interests amongst the elite, right? There's always disputes and factions amongst them, and they always wanted to have their person in charge. So there was a lot of political instability from the period of the end of the occupation in 1934, really until 1990. One of the important moments that can show us that, again, intervention has really sprung up at every possible moment in Haiti is in 1946, where there's a mass movement of the Haitian people. There's this broad coalition, they call it the worker peasant movement in Haiti, where they banded behind, their leader, Doumarie Estimé, who wanted to put forward this plan that I was mentioning earlier about building schools, right? About nation building, about building institutions, and recognizing Haiti's proud history, but also the really challenging circumstances that it's in and the hard work that they're gonna have to do to get out of this situation. He was in power for 4 years. And then with the Cold War and this idea of protecting the Americas and the entire world from creeping Soviet influence, Estimé had never been to the Soviet Union. He was branded as someone who was planning to build a Soviet, right? An agrarian Soviet in Haiti. So therefore he had to go. They worked with, trying to remember the leader in the Dominican Republic that was neighboring there at the time, the dictator who was there. Drawing a blank. But Trujillo, yes, to help overthrow the government here, and then a new military dictatorship came into place. It's a very sad moment because they were actually gaining a lot of ground at this time in terms of putting these policies into place, building trade unions, and having elected officials in place, which was something, say, quite foreign at the time, but that was looked at as being unacceptable, and it was rolled back, not just by the Haitian elite, but by the United States directly interfering in that coup at the time in 1950. There's a small period of time as well in 1957 where another school teacher gets elected. He's kind of the legacy of Estimé and saying, I'm gonna try to put this back into place. He's elected in a landslide. He lasted 7 weeks and he got overthrown by Duvalier. So in 1957, that's where the dictatorship comes into play, and we're probably familiar with what happened. Brutal dictatorship, crackdown on all kinds of people, perceived enemies or not. Lots of people leave the country, lots of people go to prison, lots of people die for perceived opposition to the dictatorship, and obviously real opposition as well. So in 1986, the dictatorship falls. That's not accidental, right? The Cold War is coming to a close. These dictators, we see it in the Philippines, we see it in Latin America, we see it in Africa. They're less useful than they were before. We're trusting that we can have new forms of engagement with these countries that are more appealing and that they're more accountable to us and less heavy-handed, right? This kind of democratic opening is happening. Haiti is no exception. The problem is that this window or opportunity that opens in 1986, when Haitians are allowed to vote for the first time in modern history, right? I know that 1946 was one, 1957 was another. This moment where the international community is sending their observers to Haiti, They're financing the election, and you have an opponent of Duvalier, a populist priest, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. Some people might have heard of him. Actually didn't want to run for political office. He was pushed by his congregation and the people to run, that we need someone to run against this World Bank staffer who is being run as the main candidate and is very well financed. And if no one runs against him, he will win. So Aristide steps up in 1990 and runs. And he wins with about 60%. It might not sound very convincing and say, oh, well, you know, in Toronto, people win with 17% or whatever it is that people get upset about. But his opponent had less than 10%, right? The second place person had less than 10. So it was a wide field, but it showed that the majority of people, when given the option, chose this leader, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who ran on this modest platform that I mentioned before of moving from absolute misery to dignified poverty. One of the mistakes that he made, and I say mistakes again, I'll use my air quotes, was to say that part of his campaign promise to free up resources for the Haitian people was to disband the military, right? Because most militaries in the global south, they're not used to fight wars against their neighbors. They're mostly used to repress their own people, right? Haiti is no exception as well in this regard. So he said, I'm going to disband the military. He ended up eventually doing it. He turned it into a marching band. That was his last order before he left office. But those soldiers, they didn't just go into the night quietly. So he made this not a threat. It was a policy that was put forward, and he intended to see it through. And he also said, I'm going to end child slavery in the houses of the wealthy in Haiti. Really terrible things like this, right? Like it's mind-boggling when you look at the policies. I think most of us, almost all of us, I hope, would say that we're in agreement with these things. Mild taxation, reinvesting any money that we have into building a Haitian judiciary, to build up institutions. They built schools to train civil servants. He invited Taiwan and Cuba in to build medical schools to train what he hoped to be generations of nurses and doctors and technicians, that they would go out into the country. Really modest but important things. He was overthrown 7 months into his rule by the Haitian elite and also by the United States. So he's out of the country until 1994. He goes and somehow managed to get exiled in the United States. This is a period when a lot of Haitians, it's kind of similar to now, a lot of Haitians are leaving the country because the military came back in, right? The military that he threatened to disband took power and are massacring all of his followers, right? Over 10,000 of them are killed. People are rightfully fleeing. A lot of them obviously ending up Cuba, but most of them are going to Florida. It's an election year, right? And Bill Clinton is in power, and he says, hey, I need you to help me. If I put you back in Haiti, do you think you could stop the stem of boat people coming to Florida? Because it's a very important election, and it's a very important state. If we can work this out, I'll win. So he says, I can go back. I want to go back. You know, I was chased out at gunpoint. I would like to have a chance to lead the country. My term is almost over. And Bill Clinton says, okay, great. But I'll put you back on one condition, that when you go back, you open up the Haitian economy, you start privatizing what little remains, the telephone company, the electrical company, sell the port, sell the airport, get rid of any tariffs on agricultural goods that are there to benefit mostly rice farmers in Arkansas, where Bill Clinton is from, former, I believe, governor. So really, really terrible things. But he says, I'm seeing thousands of people getting killed. I'll go, and we will sign this. So he signs that. That's in 1994. The Haitian Constitution outlines that and this was put in place in 1990. Aristide helped to put it into place and draft some of these policies. And it says that because of the fear of dictatorship that Haitians would rightfully have coming out of the Duvalier dictatorship, that no government can run for a second term. You need to kind of take a breather to step back so that you can let somebody else run, even if they're from your party. But it just allows for this turnover, to have some peaceful transitions of power, for us to practice democracy, which I think is good. So Aristide steps back, they have elections, his prime minister becomes leader. And things are relatively smooth. There's still issues. The United States, for example, doesn't like the direction that Haiti's going in, so they put something called the Dole Amendment into place. I think it's Senator Bob Dole put it in place, which made it a law that said that we cannot give direct funding to the Haitian state, right? This is where this kind of explosion of NGOs comes through, or where it comes from. So Haiti had, at the time of the earthquake, had over 10,000 NGOs there doing everything from water provision to providing security to healthcare, literacy programs, delivering food, missionaries, anything, 10,000. So this is something that happened as well. It was a way to politically weaken this moderate left alternative in Haiti, which again was, I don't really think it was a threat to anyone aside from the Haitian elite, who I think they have it coming. But it was looked at as being bad for business, right? And it was looked at as being politically unstable. They didn't want it to turn into a moderate social democratic state. So Aristide gets in power and he disbanded the military. He started to build a national police force, which he thought would be more accountable to the people at its civilian police. There would be mechanisms whereby people that commit human rights abuses would hopefully be tried and go to court for that. It didn't end up happening because part of his campaign, which people really got behind, was that he wanted to go and address some of these initial issues that Haiti was dealing with. So I know reparations has become a big thing now the last, say 6 to 10 years. Haiti was doing this in 2000, just talking about the debt, that freedom debt that they paid. And they weren't getting into really complex negotiations. They just said, that money could really do a lot to help us in our infrastructure, right? Like, is there a way that we can figure something out? Because we're in such a hole right now, it's impossible. Who are we going to tax? What industry are we going to tax in order to build up funding or reserves to be able to put in any kind of program? And you can imagine this kind of, rhetoric from him really took off. And people said, yeah, this sounds good. We're going to fight, for this historical wrong. He was in power for another 4 years, and then he was overthrown again by Canada, the United States, and France. Canada denied this for a really long time. It wasn't until 2 years ago that the Minister of Latin America and the Caribbean, or he's the Secretary of State for the Latin America, he had Dennis Paradis. He has like a smaller portfolio within the Chrétien Paul Martin government, called the United States to come to Ottawa. It's called the Ottawa Initiative, where they said we need to get rid of this government. They're no longer following our rules, and that the Haitian elite, big power brokers in the country, are complaining and want him gone. They think it's setting a bad example, right? And this is at a time where Cuba, they have this special period. Cuba, well, it's still now, is in very dire straits. Venezuela, Chavez had been in power, I think, for about 2 years when this happened, so he didn't have a chance to consolidate his base of support around Latin America and the Caribbean that he did later on. So Cuba was actually, or Haiti was actually quite isolated in this sense, but it was still looked at as being geopolitically unstable, and there needed to be an intervention to bring it on side. So I'm just gonna pull up, hopefully this will work. I'm not sure if it will. If not, I can post it for others. Okay, it doesn't exist. It did earlier. Okay. The universe is working against me. There's gonna be questions about that slide. Are you sure? Where's your evidence? It got deleted. So I'm just gonna wrap up really quickly by this top quote here, where the Organization of American States, which is a multinational grouping of countries in the Americas, but there's also representation from Europe there, that has taken on kind of this role of deciding, being the arbitrator of what is acceptable in Haiti in terms of its political program and way to move forward and organize itself. And they're quite open in their discussions about Haiti, talking about the real problem that started in 1990 was that they began to let Haitians run the country, right? And to do and undertake these moderate reforms to try and go from absolute misery to dignified poverty. Bill Graham discusses as well Canada's motivation for intervening in 2004 and where the president Jean-Bertrand Aristide was actually kidnapped from his house in February. So we're almost 20 years next month, and we do have an event I was telling Martin about happening at New College in the William Du on February 26th that is speaking to this 20th anniversary and kind of talking about the longer term legacies. And we're bringing 3 Haitian scholars down to speak to that. So I asked if maybe I could circulate that a bit later if people would be interested. But there's other levels to this as well. It's not just that Canada didn't like the way that Haiti was moving. It's that at this moment, the war in Iraq was unfolding, right? March 2003. The coup in Haiti took place in February 2004. The Chrétien government was not on board, thankfully, with the war in Iraq. But Bill Graham talks about how because they were offside with the war in Iraq, they owed the United States one. So they took the lead on Haiti when it came to overthrowing the government. They didn't just overthrow him and said, okay, go to the Dominican or Mexico or wherever. They took him in the middle of the night, put him on a plane and dropped him in the Central African Republic of all places, right? So he was in Africa for 7 years. He wasn't allowed to go to the Western Hemisphere. He was told by, at the time, Colin Powell, because Jamaica said, we will take you in. You know, it's not Haiti, but you're close. And, you know, maybe people would find some comfort in that. And eventually you can go back. Colin Powell told PJ Patterson, who was the president of Jamaica, if you do that, there's going to be big trouble for you. So let him stay in Africa. So he ended up staying in South Africa for 7 years. The last point that I'm gonna, we can stop there, I think, that there's much more. So my slides, there's a lot more information. I realize 45 minutes, it's just getting started. But really, we need to be very cautious when our government, I'm not saying us, I know that we're all good, well-meaning people here, but when our governments talk about intervening in Haiti, we need to ask a lot of questions as to why we are intervening and to what ends and who is going to be doing this, because there's a long and tragic track record that exists. Something I didn't mention is that from 2004 to 2019, the United Nations was in Haiti, providing a stabilization mission that clearly didn't work. Brazil was the head of it because of their experience fighting gangs in Rio, as you can imagine, right? That they have the skills to do it. It failed because Haiti's problem is not the gangs. The gangs are a symptom of something else that we don't want to deal with, right? Which is a much bigger problem. But if we are serious about actually helping, it's one that we have to deal with, which is about letting the Haitian people on their own, if they ask for help, sure. But to put forward their own institutions, to have pride in their own ability to take care of their affairs, right? If that means that they want to farm, let them farm. If they want to do anything else that they want, we will say we will support. Instead, almost every single time that they try to move forward, someone from this core group, from the United States, from Canada, from France, or the UN, gets involved and shuts it down. Almost automatically. And if we expect anything to change, that has to change. So I'll stop there because I know there's probably some questions, but thank you all very much for listening. I really appreciate that.